They stood frozen, their gleaming armor catching the sun's dying light, until the humans suddenly started running, leaving everyone terrified. The battlefield was silent. Not the kind of silence that brought peace, but the deafening stillness that came before something unimaginable. Two armies stood facing each other, the towering Virilians, alien conquerors with obsidian skin and eyes like burning coals, and the last surviving humans of Earth, worn, battered, but still standing. No one moved. For hours, they'd been locked in a strange standoff. The Virilians, known for their ruthless efficiency, had crushed dozens of worlds without a second thought. But here, on this fragile blue planet, the humans hadn't surrendered. They had no advanced weapons, no towering machines, just old rifles, torn uniforms, and something the Virilians couldn't quite understand. Then it happened. Without a word, the humans started running, not towards the enemy but away. Dropping weapons, scattering in all directions, some sprinting toward the crumbling city behind them, others vanishing into the forests. The Virilian commander, Sarrik, narrowed his blazing eyes. It wasn't retreat, it was something worse. Something primal. Why would an enemy run without warning? What did they know that the Virilians didn't? The alien soldiers froze, gripping their plasma rifles tighter. Even the hum of their advanced war machines seemed to hesitate. Fear spread, not among the humans, but through the Virilians. Sarrik slammed his clawed fist into the ground, furious at his soldiers' hesitation. But deep down, he felt it too, that creeping terror that something far worse was about to happen. Was it a trap? A weapon they hadn't detected? Or was it something else entirely? The humans kept running, their faces filled not with fear but urgency, desperation mixed with a strange sense of hope. And then the earth trembled. A low rumble echoed through the valley, distant but growing louder. The Virilians turned, scanning the horizon, but there was nothing, only the vast empty sky stretching endlessly. But the humans kept running. Sarik's breath quickened. For the first time in centuries, the predator felt like prey. What did the humans know? And why did that make even the mightiest warriors in the galaxy tremble? The earth rumbled deeper now, vibrating under the Virilians' armored boots. Sarik's keen senses strained to detect the source, but there was nothing visible, no machines, no explosions, no signs of human trickery. Still, the humans ran. Some of his soldiers broke ranks, exchanging nervous glances, their grip on plasma rifles loosening as instinct clawed at their minds. These warriors had conquered dozens of worlds, yet fear, a rare, bitter taste, gripped them now. Sarrik bellowed, "Hold your ground. They're bluffing." But his voice barely cut through the growing roar. Dust lifted from the cracked earth, swirling in the tremor's wake. The commander activated his visor's ground-penetrating scan, expecting tunnels, bombs, something, anything, but the readings came back blank. Except, no, there was something. Beneath the crust of the earth, deep caverns, previously undetected, shifted. Moving. Breathing? Sarik's heart raced, a sensation foreign to his kind. "What is this?" he muttered, tightening his clawed hands. One of his lieutenants, Vecker, stepped forward, visor flashing with data. "Commander, there's organic movement beneath us. Massive. But it doesn't match any known lifeforms." Sarrik growled. "The humans did this. They awakened something." The lieutenant hesitated, then added, "Commander, it's ancient. Older than this world's civilizations. It was here before them." Before them? The realization hit Sarrik like a plasma blast to the chest. This wasn't human-made. This was Earth itself. The trembling deepened, knocking some Virilian soldiers off balance. Far in the distance, a fissure split the land, jagged and black, as though the planet's skin had torn open. A thick, dark mist seeped from it, snaking into the air like tendrils reaching for prey. Sarek activated his communicator, broadcasting to all forces. Fall back to higher ground. Do not let that mist touch you. But it was too late for some. The mist spread fast, faster than any gas the Virelians had encountered. It coiled around a group of soldiers. Their obsidian armor, resistant to energy blasts and corrosive elements, began to corrode, bubbling as though dipped in acid. They screamed, sharp, alien cries that echoed through the valley. Sarek watched, horrified, as the mist didn't just dissolve their armor, it absorbed it, growing thicker, darker. The humans knew. That's why they ran. Vekar's voice broke through the chaos. Commander. What are your orders? Sarek hesitated. His mission was to conquer this planet, to break its inhabitants and strip its resources, but no mission accounted for this. Still, pride rooted him in place. He was Virelian. Fear was beneath him. Yet, deep inside, something primal urged him to run, just as the humans had. Another tremor hit, this one so violent it split the battlefield in two. From the fissure, something emerged, not entirely visible through the mist, but massive, ancient, with countless glowing eyes peering through the darkness. The humans hadn't been running from the Virelians. They were running from this. Sarek's pride cracked. Retreat, he roared, finally surrendering to survival instinct. But the mist was already too close. As the Virelian forces scrambled, Sarek caught a glimpse of a lone human, an older man, standing atop a ridge, watching the chaos below. He wasn't running anymore. He stood firm, hands clasped around an old relic, a staff etched with symbols, glowing faintly. Who was he? And why wasn't he afraid? Sarek's gaze locked onto the lone human atop the ridge, the old man holding the glowing staff. Amid the swirling mist and chaos, he stood motionless, his cloak billowing like a banner against the storm. Every instinct screamed at Sarek to flee, but curiosity rooted him in place. The mist thickened, creeping closer to the commander, hissing as it devoured everything in its path. Sarek barked an order into his comms, Vekar. Lead the troops to higher ground. I'll follow shortly. Commander, you'll be cut off. Vekar's panicked voice crackled through the static. Go! Sarek bellowed, silencing further argument. The commander activated his grav boots, propelling himself upward toward the ridge. He needed answers, and the old human was the key. As he landed with a heavy thud, the human didn't flinch. His eyes, pale blue and ancient, studied Sarek with unsettling calm. Sarek raised his plasma rifle. You knew this would happen, he growled. What is that thing? The old man's voice was steady, almost sorrowful. You shouldn't be here, Virelian. None of you should. Sarek tightened his grip on the rifle. Answer me, human. But the old man didn't seem intimidated. He gestured to the fissure below, where the colossal, mist-shrouded entity slithered, its glowing eyes still multiplying in the dark. That is the Hollow One. It predates your empire, predates humanity itself. We've kept it buried for millennia. You, kept it? Why would you leave something like that alive? The old man sighed, the lines on his face deepening. Because killing it isn't possible. It's part of this world, tied to its core. Disturbing it risks more than you can comprehend. Sarek's mind raced. His invasion had triggered this. The Virelian drills had penetrated too deep, awakening this ancient force. But pride burned in his chest. If it bleeds, it can die, he snarled. The human's eyes darkened. That's what your kind never understands. Not everything should be fought. Sarek raised his rifle, but the old man slammed the staff into the ground. A shockwave rippled outward, momentarily pushing back the encroaching mist. Symbols along the staff's length blazed bright. The commander stumbled, disoriented. What did you do? I gave you a chance, the old man whispered. But you have to decide, pride or survival? Down below, Sarek's forces struggled against the mist. Some soldiers, too slow or too proud, had already fallen. The Hollow One's form became clearer, its elongated body stretched for miles beneath the earth, writhing as though tasting freedom for the first time in eons. The old man turned, his gaze heavy with centuries of burden. We, the keepers, were entrusted with holding it here. But now, the seal is broken. Sarek sneered. Then reseal it. The man chuckled bitterly. It's not that simple. The seal was built on balance, between humanity and the earth. Your invasion shattered that balance. A thunderous growl echoed from the fissure, followed by another violent quake. A massive tendril, cloaked in mist and lined with jagged scales, shot skyward, wrapping around a Virilian cruiser attempting to flee. With a brutal twist, the tendril crushed the ship, sending debris raining down. Sarek's heart pounded. For the first time in his life, he felt truly powerless. The old man's voice softened. But there's still a way. Sarek hesitated. Tell me. The man raised the staff, its glow intensifying. The Hollow One feeds on imbalance, greed, pride, destruction. It thrives on what you bring to this world. Sarek growled, frustration bubbling. What do you want from me? An apology? The man's eyes met his. A choice. Below them, the mist neared the last of the retreating Virilians. They didn't have much time. The old man extended the staff toward Sarek. Take it. Sarek recoiled. What? Take it. Wield the balance. Only you can decide if your kind survives. The commander's claws twitched. Every fiber of his being resisted. But the sight of his dying soldiers, the futility of their weapons against this ancient force, broke something inside him. He grabbed the staff. Instantly, a searing pain coursed through his body. Visions flooded his mind, images of Earth's ancient past, of civilizations rising and falling, all under the silent gaze of the Hollow One. He saw humans sealing the entity away, sacrificing entire cities to bury it deep. He saw the earth crying out as it was mined, torn, and polluted. Then he saw something else. Hope. The staff pulsed, and Sarek understood, this wasn't just a weapon. It was a bridge between worlds, between invader and native. He staggered back, the weight of the staff nearly unbearable. How do I use this? The old man's form flickered, as though his time was ending. You already are. Now choose, restore the balance, or let it all fall. The mist surged upward, engulfing the ridge. Sarek roared, driving the staff into the ground. A blinding wave of energy exploded outward, halting the mist's advance, but only momentarily. The Hollow One wasn't done yet. And neither was Sarek. The shockwave from Sarek's strike reverberated through the battlefield, pushing back the suffocating mist for mere moments. Below, remnants of his forces scrambled to regroup, staring up at their commander wielding a glowing staff, an alien sight that unsettled even the bravest Virilians. Sarek's arms trembled under the staff's immense weight. It wasn't just a weapon, it was alive, pulsing with ancient energy, binding him to something far older than he could comprehend. The old man's figure was fading, his body almost translucent as if his essence had been spent. You've taken the first step, Virilian, but you're not done. Sarek growled, struggling to keep the staff upright. Then tell me what I need to do. The old man's voice softened, tinged with regret. The Hollow One can't be destroyed. But it can be, satisfied. Sarek's scales bristled. Satisfied? It's devouring my troops. The Hollow One feeds on imbalance. On greed. Violence. Destruction, the old man said, his form flickering. You've awakened it by tearing into the planet, by taking without thought. It needs an offering, a balance. Sarek's claws tightened around the staff. You want me to sacrifice my soldiers? The old man's eyes, though fading, burned with intensity. No. Yourself. The words hit Sarik like a plasma bolt. His survival instincts rebelled, roaring within him. He was Commander Sarik of the Virelian Dominion, the pride of his species. He hadn't fought through decades of war to die here on this forgotten rock. But deep within, another thought clawed its way to the surface: I caused this. Below, his soldiers continued to fall. The Hollow One's tendrils thrashed wildly, grabbing ships and crushing them like paper. The mist slithered closer to the remaining forces, swallowing the wounded and leaving only silence behind. Sarek's comm buzzed with static before Vecker's voice broke through. Commander. We're pinned down. The mist, it's everywhere. We can't hold out much longer. Sarek's grip on the staff tightened. He could hear the panic in Vecker's voice, the same fear mirrored across the battlefield. The old man coughed, his body nearly gone. The staff connects you to the core, to the Hollow One itself. Use it, reach out. Sarik clenched his jaw, then jammed the staff into the ground once more. This time, he didn't resist the surge. Energy flooded through him, and his consciousness was yanked downward, deep beneath the earth. He was no longer standing on the ridge. He was inside the Hollow One. A vast, cavernous space stretched infinitely, filled with swirling mist and countless glowing eyes. They watched him from every direction, ancient, cold, and filled with hunger. Virelian. The voice wasn't heard but felt, vibrating through his very bones. Sarek's claws flexed, trying to maintain his composure. You're the Hollow One. I am hunger. I am balance undone. Sarik struggled to find words. We didn't mean to awaken you. We. Lies. The voice thundered, shaking the very space around him. You take. You destroy. You think yourselves gods. Sarik felt exposed, his victories and conquests unraveling under the weight of that truth. He was a conqueror. A destroyer. And now, he stood before something he couldn't simply defeat. He hesitated, then forced the words out. I offer myself. If it will stop the destruction. The countless eyes narrowed, the mist swirling tighter around him. One life for many? The voice echoed mockingly. Sarek's heart raced. He expected the entity to accept, to consume him right then. But instead, the Hollow One spoke again. Not enough. Sarek's claws dug into his palms. Then what? What do you want? Change. The word hit him harder than any plasma blast. Your kind will not stop. Even if you die here, they will return. Take more. Destroy more. The Hollow One's voice softened, almost contemplative. But you have seen. You can carry the weight. Sarek's vision blurred as pain lanced through his mind. Images flooded him, worlds consumed by greed, entire ecosystems razed, species wiped out. But then, there were glimpses of hope, planets healed, life returning, balance restored. You offer yourself? The voice asked again, quieter this time. Sarik, his mind breaking under the strain, nodded. Yes. The Hollow One's tendrils wrapped around him, but instead of crushing, they merged with him. The mist seeped into his veins, the staff becoming part of his very being. And then, he was back on the ridge. The old man was gone, only his staff remained, now fused into Sarek's arm. His scales shimmered with a faint glow, his body heavier but stronger. Below, the mist began to recede, flowing back into the fissure. The Hollow One withdrew, its hunger momentarily sated. Sarik stood tall, but something had changed. He wasn't just Virelian anymore, he was now bound to this world, to its balance. Vekar's voice crackled through the comms again. Commander? What just happened? The mist, it's retreating. Sarek didn't answer immediately. He stared at his clawed hand, now marked with glowing sigils. I've made a pact, he finally replied, his voice hollow. A pact? With who? Sarek's gaze drifted to the now quiet Fisher. With something older than all of us. He deactivated his comms, feeling the heavy burden settle fully on his shoulders. The Hollow One still stirred beneath the surface. But for now, it was silent. Days had passed since the Hollow One retreated beneath the surface, and Commander Sarek stood on the precipice of his own understanding. His mind still echoed with the ancient entity's voice, an ever-present reminder of the deal he had struck to save his people, and the world. The staff fused to his arm remained cold to the touch, yet it pulsed with a steady rhythm, as though alive. His soldiers had begun to rebuild, but Sarek felt the weight of their eyes on him. They knew something had changed, but none dared ask. Their commander, once the fiercest warrior among them, now moved like a ghost, carrying the burden of a power he didn't fully comprehend. Vekar was the only one who had dared speak to him. We've lost half our forces, Vekar said one evening as they surveyed the barren landscape. But we can still fight. We still have the Dominion. Sarek's eyes were distant. The vast plains around them were littered with wreckage, remnants of ships and vehicles scattered like toys after a battle. It felt like a lost cause, yet the Virelians continued their march, too proud to let the destruction define them. Sarek's voice was a whisper as he turned to his second-in-command. We won't win this war, Vekar. Vekar furrowed his brow. What do you mean? I've seen the truth, Sarek said, his gaze far off. The Dominion. We are a force that only takes. We spread destruction like a plague, thinking we're conquering, but we're destroying. And we're not the only ones. Sarek's thoughts drifted back to the Hollow One's words. The ancient creature had warned him of his people's relentless greed, the never-ending thirst for expansion, for domination. But what could he do? He was bound to the Virelian cause, to their legacy of conquest and power. Vekar took a step closer, sensing the tension in his commander's voice. Then what do we do, Sarek? Are you saying we should just abandon everything? Sarek turned, his eyes fierce. No. But we need to change. The Hollow One doesn't just take lives, it consumes balance. And if we keep taking, keep fighting, it will consume all of us. A long silence stretched between them. What do you mean, change? Vekar asked finally. We stop. We cease the conquest, the destruction. We offer peace to the worlds we've ravaged, and we listen. We heal. Vekar's eyes widened. You want us to give up everything we've fought for? Sarek's heart ached at the thought. He had spent his entire life fighting for dominance, for power. To surrender that, to embrace peace and healing, it felt unnatural, wrong even. But the Hollow One's voice echoed through him again, you have seen. You can carry the weight. We have to make it right, Sarek murmured. Before it consumes us all. Later that evening, the sound of frantic footsteps echoed through the corridors of the warship. A young officer burst into Sarek's quarters, his face pale with panic. Commander, there's something we need to see, the officer said, breathless. Sarek stood immediately, the familiar weight of the staff pulling him toward the officer. What is it? We found a signal, the officer said. It's coming from the Northern Territories, the Zakar system. They've been watching us. Sarek's heart skipped a beat. The Zakars were one of the most ancient species known to the Virelians, a race of peaceful diplomats whose homeworld was untouched by war. They had stayed neutral for centuries, refusing to engage with the Dominion's expansion. Prepare the ship, Sarek ordered. We'll leave at once. As they left the ship behind, traveling into the quiet reaches of space, Sarek's thoughts began to race. The Zakars have always resisted. Could they have known what we would become? When they arrived, the first thing Sarek noticed was the quiet. The Zakars had not sent a military fleet, nor had they prepared for battle. They greeted the Virilian force with calm, peaceful gestures, their ships floating gracefully in the void of space. Commander Sarek, a tall figure said, stepping from the lead Zakaran ship. The alien's voice was like the rustling of leaves, gentle yet firm. We have been waiting. Sarek lowered his gaze. Waiting for what? For you to come, the Zakaran said. We knew you would. And we knew you would be different. Sarek clenched his fists. How could you know? How could you possibly know? The Zakaran smiled, its eyes full of ancient knowledge. We have watched your people for eons. We know the price of destruction. We have seen it in your past, and we feared it would come again. Sarek's heart pounded. What do you want from us? A choice, the Zakaran said. You are at a crossroads, Commander. You can continue down the path of war, of greed, or you can join us in the fight to heal this galaxy. We cannot undo the damage you have done, but we can stop it from spreading further. Sarek's pulse quickened. The Hollow One's words came flooding back. Change. Are you offering peace? Sarek asked, his voice strained. We are offering redemption, the Zakaran replied. Sarek felt the weight of his decision pressing down on him. The fate of not just his people, but the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. And deep within, he felt the Hollow One stir, watching, waiting. Sarek stood before the Zakaran diplomat, the weight of the galaxy resting on his shoulders. His mind was a storm of conflicting thoughts. The war. The peace. The Hollow One. His own people. Every path seemed to lead to a different end, none of which felt like salvation. Yet, here in front of him stood an opportunity, a chance to change the course of history. He had always believed that strength was measured by domination. That victory meant conquering, not yielding. But now, after everything he had seen, after the destruction, the agony, the ancient entity's power, and the words of the Zakaran diplomat, Sarek was starting to wonder if he had been wrong all along. Could peace truly be achieved? Could healing begin with a single, impossible choice? The Zakaran, who had remained silent as Sarek grappled with his thoughts, finally spoke again, their voice soft but filled with weight. Commander, they said, the choice is yours, but be warned, the path of redemption is not easy. It is a road filled with sacrifices. The Dominion will not stand by quietly as you abandon its creed. The galaxy will fight against you. But if you truly seek to undo the damage, if you want to save your people, this is the only way. Sarek's jaw clenched, his fists trembling at his sides. Sacrifices. The word echoed in his mind, a sharp reminder of the cost that lay ahead. The Virilian Empire had built its strength on conquering, on consuming. Now, he was being asked to turn his back on it all and choose peace over conquest, to stand against everything that had defined his life. What must we do? Sarek asked, his voice quieter than he intended. You must stand before your people, speak truthfully to them, and tell them that the Dominion is ending. That war has come to a close. That we must heal what has been broken, the Zakaran explained. Your army will fight you, Commander. There will be those who resist. But if you are strong enough, if your heart remains true, they will listen. Or they will fall away. A chill ran through Sarek's spine. The weight of leadership had always been heavy, but this was something entirely different. It was not a matter of military tactics or battlefield strategies. It was a matter of the soul. Could he truly do this? Could he betray everything he had known, everything he had fought for, in the name of something as fragile as peace? The Zakaran's voice cut through his thoughts once more. And know this, Commander, if you choose the path of peace, the Hollow One will not release you from its bond. It will remain a part of you forever. Sarek's breath caught in his throat. The Hollow One. The entity that had helped him secure victory on the battlefield, but at such a terrible cost. It had whispered in his mind, guiding his hand in every moment of battle. Yet its true nature remained a mystery, its motivations unclear. And now, its presence was woven into the very fabric of his being. Then I am truly bound, Sarek muttered, his voice thick with resignation. To the Dominion. To the Hollow One. To this war. Only if you let it, the Zakaran replied gently. The bond may be powerful, but your will is stronger. You can choose to rise above it, to let go of its influence. But first, you must face your people. You must face the truth. The moment had come. Sarek stood before the Grand Assembly Hall on the Virilian homeworld, the air thick with anticipation. The hall was filled with thousands of his people, warriors, civilians, and politicians, all staring at him in silence. Each of them had witnessed his rise to power, had admired his strength, and followed his commands without question. To them, he was a symbol of the Dominion's might, a living legend. Now, he was about to shatter that legend. He stepped up to the podium, his mind racing. He could feel the eyes of every individual upon him, their hopes, fears, and expectations weighing heavily on him. His chest tightened as he took a deep breath, the staff still fused to his arm, a cold reminder of the choice he had to make. People of the Dominion, he began, his voice strong but filled with an unspoken sorrow. We have conquered. We have destroyed. And we have spread across this galaxy, believing ourselves to be unstoppable. We have taken without mercy, without understanding the cost. A murmur rippled through the crowd, a mix of disbelief and curiosity. This was not the speech they had expected. But in our wake, Sarek continued, we have left only ashes. Worlds ravaged. Lives torn apart. And now, standing here, I can no longer ignore the truth. The path we have chosen has led us to the brink of destruction. And I cannot walk it any longer. Gasps echoed from the crowd. He could feel their confusion, their anger simmering beneath the surface. He was turning against everything they had known, everything they had fought for. I speak now not as your commander, Sarek said, his voice unwavering, but as a man who has seen what this war has done, not only to others but to us, as well. We are bound by our past, by our hunger for power. But we do not have to remain prisoners to it. We can choose a different future. A future of healing, of peace, of understanding. It will not be easy, but it is the only way forward. The room fell deathly silent. Sarek could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. He had made his choice, but now came the hardest part, waiting for his people to respond. You are no longer my soldiers, Sarek said, his voice echoing through the hall. You are my family. And together, we can rebuild what we have destroyed. But I need your help. I cannot do this alone. He paused, allowing the words to settle. In the stillness that followed, the entire assembly seemed to hold its breath. Then, slowly, one by one, voices began to rise. Commander Sarek, Veker's voice rang out, strong and resolute. We stand with you. And then, as if the dam had broken, others followed. Warriors, diplomats, even civilians, all united in a single declaration. We stand with you, Commander. The weight of the decision, the burden of the future, had shifted. For the first time in his life, Sarek did not feel alone in his struggle. He had found the strength to change, and now, the people who followed him had found the strength to change with him. The moment the crowd began to rally behind him, something within Sarek shifted. A sense of hope, once foreign to him, began to fill the void left by his past. He had made the choice. He had opened the door to peace, but now he had to walk through it. It would be a road filled with challenges, betrayal, and doubt, but it was the only road that led away from destruction. He stood before his people, the weight of his decision still heavy on his shoulders, but his heart was lighter. For the first time in a long while, he felt free. Free from the chains of conquest, from the haunting presence of the Hollow One, from the expectations of his past. "Let us rebuild," he said, his voice clear and filled with a new sense of purpose. "Let us heal the wounds we have inflicted on this galaxy, and on ourselves. It begins now. We have the power to change." The cheers that followed were not of victory, but of hope. The people of the Dominion had not followed him out of fear or loyalty to a leader, they followed him because they had seen the truth. The same truth that had gripped Sarek's heart: peace was not something to be won by battle, but by understanding, by compassion, by the willingness to face the consequences of one's actions. The first steps toward peace were small, but they were steps nonetheless. Sarek worked alongside the Zakaran diplomats, meeting with the leaders of the planets that had suffered under the Dominion's rule. It was a slow, painstaking process. There were those who could not forgive, who could not forget the destruction they had witnessed. But there were also those who saw the sincerity in Sarek's actions, who believed that, perhaps, they too could begin to heal. The Hollow One remained within him, its voice no longer a constant whisper in his mind, but a distant echo. Sarek had come to understand that it was not a force to be defeated, it was a part of him, a part of the darkness he had carried within himself. And now, he was learning to control it, to not let it define him. He had learned that the greatest strength came not from power, but from restraint, from the ability to choose love over violence, peace over war. He returned to his homeworld, where the rebuilding efforts had begun. The cities were damaged, the people scarred by years of war, but the spark of hope was undeniable. His former generals, once hardened by years of conquest, were now working alongside civilians, teaching them how to rebuild their homes, their communities. It was a labor of love, and it was their way of proving to the galaxy, and to themselves, that they were more than the sum of their past mistakes. Sarek spent the days walking among the people, offering guidance, comfort, and the promise of a future that was no longer defined by destruction. He had seen the worst of what his people could do, but now he was beginning to see the best of them. And then, one evening, as the sun set over the rebuilt city, Sarek stood on the balcony of his once mighty palace, now a symbol of peace rather than power. The air was calm, the streets alive with the sound of laughter and conversation. It was a quiet night, a peaceful night. And for the first time in his life, Sarek felt the weight of his past fully lifted. The Zakaran diplomat appeared beside him, as if they had always been there, their presence a steady reminder of the journey they had all taken together. "You have done it, Commander," they said softly. "You have brought peace." Sarek looked out at the horizon, where the last rays of sunlight bathed the city in a warm, golden glow. "No," he replied, his voice quiet but firm. "We did it. All of us. Together." The Zakaran nodded, their expression unreadable but filled with a deep, unspoken respect. "And now, you can rest." Sarek's gaze softened. The Hollow One was still with him, but its influence had faded. He had learned to live with it, just as he had learned to live with the weight of his past. There was still work to be done, still a galaxy to heal, but he was no longer carrying that burden alone. He turned to the diplomat, a slight smile playing at the corner of his lips. "The road ahead will not be easy. But it will be ours to walk. And I have learned, through everything, that the greatest strength lies not in what we take, but in what we give." The diplomat regarded him for a moment, then turned their gaze to the horizon as well. "Then, Commander, you have truly become something more than you ever were before." Sarek nodded, knowing that this was not the end, but the beginning. The beginning of a new era, one where peace, not power, would define their future.